So I just got back from watching Steven Spielberg's new film, Disclosure Day. Okay, this is a return to form for Steven Spielberg. He hasn't made a film in a couple years ever since his kind of semi-autobiography, The Fabelmans, and before that it was West Side Story, which was an Oscars darling. The Fabelmans was kind of a mixed bag. I think a lot of people liked it, some people didn't. I actually really enjoyed it, but this film has been shrouded in a lot of mystery because no one really quite knows what it's about. The advertising has been very vague, and it's almost been a mystery in itself as to what the film even is. I like that, but there's been a lot of discussion. Some people are loving this film, some people are hating this film. There's a lot of strong feelings about this film one way or the another. Let's kind of dive into what I thought about this movie. So right off the bat, immediately with Disclosure Day, the best thing about it is a legend at work. This is Steven Spielberg reminding you who he is, going back to his Alien genre. The story of how he's made this is really interesting, talking about how it's kind of like a magnum opus for a lot of his Alien work. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But overall, the filmmaking is just amazing. Just every breath of this just screams, again, just a legend at work. The camera work, the movements are just so interesting, especially like the blocking and the way that the camera works. You know, it really does, like a good director, you can kind of see like blocking, movement of the camera, and it's kind of like a dance. And it really helps with pacing when you do that as well. We're going to talk about the pacing. It has a couple issues, but when it comes to the direction and the editing that's infused with the pacing, phenomenal. Absolutely done. Again, only something that can be done by like a legend Steven Spielberg at work. The cinematography is also really, really good at times. I really like Steven Spielberg's cinematography, and it's definitely on display here. I would actually argue, if anything, to be honest with you, I would kind of wish he would change it up a little bit. You know, his films all kind of look the same. It's the problem I have with Nolan, where it's like, I understand having a style, but I do kind of maybe wish we would try it just a little bit, maybe change it up just a tad. There are some very interesting color choices, though, I will say, particularly with like the wardrobe, and especially the dichotomy between like some of the hero characters and some of the villain characters. I thought that that's really interesting, and if you're like someone who watches those films looking for those kind of like minute details, you're going to love this because it has a lot of stuff like that at play. But the pacing really, again, it's really, really good. It's going to hook you right from the very first scene. Just the opening shots just going to entice you. You're going to be like, oh, what's going on here? And then we go right into the plot. And it's very, very, very good. A lot of this film is going, what is happening? You know, like I'm sitting here saying that you don't really know the plot of this movie. You still don't really know what's going on in this film until like an hour and a half into it. I want to warn you about that. It's not going to immediately tell you what it's about. It's kind of all leading to this reveal that I didn't necessarily quite feel was worth it, but we're going to talk about that at the end. Right now I'm kind of in the good stuff, and I'm really talking about just the directing in general, but it really does hook you and it keeps you engaged the entire time. And I think that I've seen so many movies lately that have honestly just kind of bored me a little bit, that I thought it was really fun to see a film where genuinely I had no clue what was going to happen. I didn't know if the characters were going to survive. I didn't know where the plot was going. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know how the stories were going to interconnect with each other, and that just really kept me engaged and on the edge of my seat throughout the entire film, and I really, really appreciated that. And also another fabulous thing is the John Williams score. It's not groundbreaking, you know, I don't necessarily think it's going to be at the top John Williams scores of his career, but it's definitely noticeable, and it's definitely there, and it definitely helps build the tension in certain scenes. You know, I think if you can just notice the score in a film in general, it's really hard to do that. I think that it's worth noting, and I did notice that in here. The performances are also absolutely amazing. Emily Blunt in this film, I didn't know she could act like this. Like I knew she could act, and I knew she was a great actress, but I kind of didn't know that she could do some of the things that are asked of her in this performance, and it's really, really amazing. I would be shocked if she doesn't get an Oscar nomination for this. I know that that's insane, but I really think she deserves it. Let's not forget West Side Story also got Oscar nomination, and that was also another Spielberg film as well. So don't undercut it. And also, I don't know if anybody else has said this, but Eve Hewson, phenomenal in this film. She also has another really interesting storyline that's operating on multiple levels. She's just really, really good in this film, and I want to make sure she gets her credit as well, because I was really impressed by her performance a lot of times when I was watching this film, and I was really engaged and really interested in her character, and I think a lot of that was done especially by the actress, not just the script itself, but the actress, I think, especially was really doing a really great job doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to that as well. Josh O'Connor is great in this. I really liked a lot of his previous work, but he's not doing anything amazing. He has a couple moments here and there that are really, really good, and he really gets to shine, and he really gets to showcase his role, but for the most part, he's just not asked to do as much stuff as the other two actors, and so he just doesn't stick out as much, but that's not because he was particularly bad or anything. And then Colin Firth is in the film as a villain and doing, to be honest with you, something that I was just really unimpressed with the whole time. I was like, this just feels like everything Colin Firth has ever done. I was kind of like, I didn't hate his character, I just didn't think he was doing anything to elevate the character at all, and the other actors in this film are, and so I was just a little bit disappointed by that, just a skosh. Some things will feel a little too Spielberg, and I'm being very vague here because I don't want to spoil this movie, but particularly the end is all I'll say, for better or worse, especially when it comes to visual effects and the visual effects design on certain things. Again, being very vague here, you're going to be like, what are you talking about? Until you watch the movie, and then you're going to be like, okay, actually, I kind of can piece together what you're talking about. It's very, very Spielberg. And it really just depends on if you think that that's past its time or not. I don't think so. I think Spielberg's films are great because they're timeless. It felt like an old classic experience going to the movies watching this. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that that means the movie's dated or it's 30 years too late, like a lot of people are saying. I think that that's a fun experience. It's great to have all sorts of kinds of different films. So now I want to talk about the script. The script overall is very, very good. Like I said, I think especially, I'm probably of the opposite opinion with a lot of people, where I think the first 2 hours were very, very good, very, very engaging. The ending kind of didn't engage me as much. And again, I have to say that I didn't necessarily feel satisfied with the ending. I feel like there was a lot of ambiguous things that were within the film. It depends on if you like it. Normally, I love ambiguous things. Love like mysteries that are not meant to be solved. That stuff's really, really interesting to me. But here it kind of felt like it just didn't give you enough to work with to solve that mystery yourself, or to even, not necessarily solve it yourself, but just to kind of come to your own conclusion. It was very ambiguous and very vague with a lot of things. But when it came to the reveal, and especially a film that's so centered on the reveal, I kind of did leave a little bit dissatisfied, I have to say. But generally, I think like as a whole, the script is very good. It's very tight. The pacing is really good for the most part. Like I said, I think the only pacing issues that the film does have really kind of do come from the script, so I have to give it a little bit of a scratch off there. It will make you think. It's one of those movies. It's not going to give you all the answers. You're going to have to think about things. You're going to have to sit with it. You're going to have to linger with it. That's why really honestly, when I was making this review, was really trying to do a lot more specific things, because as a whole, as to if I like the movie, what I'll think about it, I think that that's really going to go down with time. And I like movies that do that, but I do have to, that's why I'm focusing on the very specific core elements and moments. One thing I love particularly about the script is the action typically, and honestly kind of every scene. There's a lot of intercutting storylines. There's a lot of things that are separate and kind of mixed together. And I think, again, that really helps with the pacing. That really helps with like keeping you engaged in the story and how they're all going to connect. But another thing is the action sequences are very well done and are always operating on multiple levels. And what I mean by that is it's not just like a chase scene running from one threat. It's a chase scene running from one threat. Someone in the car itself also has their own hidden agenda. There's another villain coming from another direction, and it really keeps you engaged. And the moments pay off. They definitely take place in the story. There's definitely consequences, and I really, really like that. And the set pieces are amazing. The visual effects with the action sequences are really, really good. I don't know. I'm assuming some of that stuff is practical. There's one scene with a car in a house. There's a car scene in general. It's really, really good. I had no clue where we were going with that whenever it started, and I was like, this is very, very good. This is, again, just Spielberg at his best. This film definitely, again, when you consider this as like Spielberg considering this as his magnum opus, okay, his alien magnum opus, really what he wants to kind of really totally say with a lot of his films on aliens. But like when it comes to like the global response to that, and more of like almost a disaster movie, this film kind of feels like in many ways. I think that that's very interesting, but I can't necessarily say I feel like this is like Steven Spielberg's magnum opus. It definitely doesn't give that in any way. It actually feels very small in scale, which I kind of think is nice, but I definitely don't necessarily know if that was intentional. But it's definitely more of like a realistic, modern, updated approach to his films like Close Encounters and E.T. And if you're interested in that, I think you're definitely going to like this. It definitely doesn't do anything new though. I think that this is not a new take, it's not to E.T. and Close Encounters like how different those stories are. It's not that different. It's just like an updated, new, modern take on it. And I think if you're interested in that, with an original story, it's not like a remake or something, but with an original story, I think if you're interested in that, you're going to like this movie. But I definitely can't say that it feels like the Steven Spielberg magnum opus that he's selling it as, personally, just in my opinion. So overall, like I said, people have strong opinions. If they love this movie, if they hate this movie, I thought it was okay. I actually thought it was pretty good. I really had fun watching it. And I think that there's always that element of things as well. And it does make you think, but I think that it was really engaging, and it's just a really cool, fun movie to see. It's really cool. Like, that's just the best way I can describe it. Like, every action scene, I was like, this is so cool. This is so fun. I'm on the edge of my seat. I think it's a lot like that, but it's definitely not without its flaws. The interesting thing about this movie, the story is so well crafted, and there's so much going on in the story that whenever it is flawed, there's still a lot to engage with those kind of ideas and stuff. So let me know what you thought about this movie down below. My next review will probably be for the Masters of the Universe movie, and yeah, peace out.